All right, everyone. Good morning. Dr. Randall Gates, board certified chiropractic neurologist, also a chiropractic physician at Gates Brain Health. And today we're talking about concussions and low testosterone. This is, I think, part 3 of our concussion series. It might be part 4. It's part 4. And earlier in the week, I talked about basically adrenal gland dysfunction, which does tie in with pituitary insufficiency. And today we're more focusing on hypogonadism, as it's referred to, where after a head injury, the gonads stop producing as much of the dominant hormone. What are gonads? Gonads are testicles in men, ovaries in women. And I will do a broadcast on hormonal dysfunction from the ovaries as well, but right now we're talking about primarily testosterone. So if you have any questions, you can post them. I'll come back to that, but I'll go through the presentation. Why is this important? As many have referred to with concussions, it is an invisible injury, so to speak. A lot of people develop concussions and they're told just to live with it, or they've had multiple concussions, you're just going to have to deal with it. There's nothing wrong on your MRI scan. There's nothing wrong in your lab work. We can't explain why you have headaches. We can't explain why you're fatigued. We can't explain why you're crying. We can't explain why you just don't feel like yourself and you have no energy. These are some of the statements that I hear often from traumatic brain injury sufferers, and the confusion is the impetus as to why I'm doing these videos, because I'm here to tell you the injuries are real, they are documentable, they are identifiable with imaging if you know what type of imaging to order. One form has become the gold standard, and I'll talk about that in broadcasts coming soon in the next week or two. So today we're talking about testosterone. So testosterone, as most of you know, is going to be produced from the testicles in a male. Is there testosterone in women? Yeah, right now we're focusing more on testosterone coming from the gonads, the testicles, and we will probably circle back to the ovaries, like I said, soon. Nonetheless, this is a great article out of JAMA Neurology, and you can read the title, Association of Concussion Symptoms with Low Testosterone Levels and Erectile Dysfunction in Former Professional U.S.-Style Football Players. So these are pro football players. They had quite the sample size. As you can see, they had, I think, about 3,506 former professional football players respond. And they basically had questionnaires looking at, okay, after your concussion, how did you feel? Did you have erectile dysfunction? And they had a whole set of symptoms consistent with low testosterone. And the conclusion was that basically concussion symptoms at the time of injury of former pro football players were associated with current participant reported low testosterone levels and erectile dysfunction indicators. These findings suggest that men with a history of head injury may benefit from discussions with their healthcare clinicians regarding testosterone deficiency and sexual dysfunction. So there are doctors out there who will tell you that testosterone is everything for a guy, and basically you can get rid of any ill by giving any guy testosterone. That's not what I'm saying, but testosterone is a piece of the puzzle, and just as I talked about in the depression series, that hormones can be a part of depression in and of itself. We need good hormones for our brain during the years of aging, so we prevent cognitive decline. And clearly here we see documented head injuries, and then immediately after, these gentlemen started saying, hey, you know, they were having significant symptoms of low testosterone. Keep in mind, these are professional football players. These are the top physical specimens for athletes in our country. In the United States, I would say there are a few people from other countries, but these are, so to speak, what you would consider the highest testosterone group, so to speak, out there, just based on their physical stature and things like that. Well, after head injuries, testosterone goes down. And then further in the article, they say we identified a highly robust, monotonically increase in association between self-reported concussion symptoms at the time of football injury and self-reported low testosterone levels and ED indicators. Even participants with relatively few concussion symptoms, i.e. those in the second quartile, had significantly elevated odds of reporting low testosterone levels compared with men in the lowest quartile. So even minor head injuries are saying seemingly quote unquote minor head injuries with less symptoms, still symptoms of low testosterone. Now, this is another article from Frontiers in Neurology. Really like this one because this is looking at our military veterans, people who were exposed to blast-related injuries, I believe in Afghanistan. And they compared them to, so they took the group who had blast injuries in Afghanistan, then they took another group of people who were in Afghanistan as in the military, and they measured their hormones, and this is a really, really great article. It's a little bit older, but still a seminal piece. So they said here, studies of traumatic brain injury from all causes have found evidence of chronic hypopituitarism defined by deficient production of one or more pituitary hormones at least 1 year after injury in 25 to 50% of cases. What does that mean? That here they're saying that the pituitary, which is where, so just a little hormonal physiology, your hypothalamus talks to your pituitary then makes hormones that then go out throughout your body and talk to another target endocrinological organ to produce the hormones that we're most familiar with. So for example, we secrete FSH and LH out of our pituitary, and those hormones then go down to the gonads. In this case, if we're talking about a guy, the testicles, if we're talking about a woman, the ovaries, to produce then the dominant hormone primarily. So here they're saying that at least 1 year after injury, 25 to 50% of traumatic brain injury cases are going to have a deficiency in at least one of their pituitary hormones. That's a huge deal. That's a huge deal because so many of you are suffering out there with concussion symptoms, and it can be a plethora of different things, as I'm talking about in all of these broadcasts. From just, we've started out talking about leaky gut, which seems way distant removed, but gut dysfunction has been shown to increase GFAP, which is a protein in the brain that you don't want to hyperaccumulate. They've shown that basically traumatic brain injuries cause leaky gut. That leaky gut facilitates more GFAP in the brain, more area of damage, particularly if there's a gut infection. We've talked about fatigue. We've talked about postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, where the base of the brain, the cerebellum, is injured in the traumatic brain injury, and we're not able to coordinate blood flow back up to the brain. What does that mean? It means you're going to feel dizzy. You may have headaches. You may have heart racing. You may not be able to think well because you're not getting blood to your brain. Well, here, like 25 to 50% of traumatic brain injury sufferers have hormonal dysfunction where their brain is not sending the right signals to the target end organ. So yeah, you guys, sorry, I'm getting a little wound up, but truly you as the traumatic brain injury cohort, post-concussion syndrome cohort, your symptoms are legitimate, and you just need to find doctors who know what's going on. And here, if you have any thought, look up low testosterone symptoms if you're a guy. Look up low estrogen symptoms if you're a female, or low progesterone symptoms. And if you have those, then you may want to consult with your doctor about this. They then said 11 of the 26, 42% of participants with blast concussions were found to have abnormal hormone levels and one or more pituitary axes, a prevalence similar to that found in other forms of TBI. So basically, it's just reiterating, they found the same thing as mentioned above. So 42% of these blast-injured military veterans are walking around with at least one pituitary hormone deficient. So it might be growth hormone, it might be IGF, which is insulin-like growth factor, which is a precursor of growth hormone. It might be testosterone, it might be estrogen. So I thought this was just a nice representation here. These are the controls, so to speak. So these are people who are over in Afghanistan, and they did not have a blast injury. The circles are people who were over in Afghanistan who had a blast injury. And let me see here, and then this is looking at testosterone, this is looking at luteinizing hormone, which is the pituitary hormone, and you can see that a fair number of, so only one has low luteinizing hormone of the controls, but several have low luteinizing hormone within the blast injury group. Also going over here, several have low testosterone. The ones that are green are overlaps between both groups. So these three basically were low on their LH and low on their testosterone. So this appears rather significant, and this is something that if you're a gentleman and you're suffering with symptoms of low testosterone, such as you're not getting morning erections, low libido, you're feeling fatigued, you're not feeling as confident, you may have some depression, you get sore easily now after working out, you don't have the same stamina that you used to, you may want to get your hormones checked. Even they're showing that symptoms of PTSD correlate with growth hormone levels, and growth hormone has effects from your pituitary gland. So yeah, so basically your growth hormone levels, as those go down, you're more likely to have PTSD symptoms. So this is why the body is so interrelated. This is why you need a multimodal, quote unquote, cheesy saying, holistic approach to chronic problems, because they're not one thing most typically. They're multiple things. And this is why I check pituitary hormones in almost every post-concussion syndrome / person who's had multiple traumatic brain injuries, because it's really, really, really important. So let me just get out of that. And good morning to everyone who's joined. Thank you, thank you. And I hope you all have a wonderful Saturday. And if you have any questions on this, let me know. I'll be posting to YouTube here shortly, and we'll go from there. All right, everyone. Have a good day.